well. I'm delighted to introduce today Thad Meese, one of the directors in our innovations group. And as part of our focus on innovations and design, this is going to be the sort of the initial lecture here in our innovations series. I'm hoping to have a number of interesting speakers lined up throughout the year, and I'm delighted to turn it over to Thad, who is an alumna of the executive MBA program at the Weatherhead School at Case Western, and someone who I'm delighted to work with on some of our business development and innovation ventures, and he's going to speak today to you about value and features and ways to approach a human-centered design process when you're coming up with not just inventions or process improvements, but even perhaps your research endeavors. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Thad. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Feeling is mutual. That'll be reflected in the slides as well. I have an embarrassment of riches here at the office. Let me first make sure that I can share on the proper screen. Second, stop presenting. How's that look for everyone?
Great.
All right, perfect. Okay, great. So yeah, thanks again, Paul. Like I said, the feeling is mutual. Really happy to be sharing time with you and the team this morning. I wanted to, as we get started here, just share a little bit of background about myself. It'll take maybe just a minute, more or less, just as the basis for maybe having some confidence in what I share with you this morning. I've been developing products. I'm working in software development for over 20 years. I also have run, in addition to working with some of the world's largest consulting firms, I'd run a small product development company here in Cleveland for a number of years and had come to the Cleveland Clinic so that I could work on solutions that actually benefit patients. I now work at Innovations. I've been here 7 years, and really the information I pulled together for you today is foundational based upon that experience, just as a way of background. Do I still have everybody?
Yep,
you
okay.
do.
Okay, perfect. It looks frozen on my team screen. Okay. So this is just a statement of disclosure. So I was one of the inventors on a case I've chosen to share with you this morning that I think appropriately demonstrates how we pull value and features together and develop products. I have no relevant financial or conflicts of interest to disclose. This is the agenda that we worked to lay out this morning. So I wanted to talk about innovation and commercialization. As Paul had mentioned, talk about the importance of values and features, and then how to stimulate and really think through by focusing in on observations of the users. This is an important concept of design-based thinking, and so you'll see there's a section here dedicated to that. I've included 2 cases. These are representative cases that I will use just to tell a story that hopefully illustrates the ways that values and features can be put into action. And then we'll just do a quick review. So first things first, you'll find I sneak a few different slides in here. This is important to me as we may have a relationship moving forward. This is the relationship that Paul and I keep right now. There is a perception of innovation and commercialization that looks a lot like this nice picture of the field. I've highlighted a couple of areas that I think are worth noting. I think generally the perception of innovation is smooth and steady. So I've made sure to circle the smooth and steady patch of grass there. Maybe potentially a couple gopher mounds, but certainly no mountains. And when we really unpack innovation and we think about it, the actual effort and risk looks a little bit more like this. It is really a long journey. It is difficult, definitely worth the effort, to reach the summit of an innovative process, regardless of the commercial outcomes in my mind. It is a lot of fun. That said, it is can be quite challenging. I always suggest that gathering the proper support is essential. It's an essential part of the journey, whether that support comes from me or whether that comes from teammates. I found that the more successful innovators tend to surround themselves with teams of people, both here in our office as well as in their practice, to support their innovative endeavors. This is the slide I was referring to, Paul. This really is about getting to the summit together. Oftentimes this takes a lot of partnership, and it's based upon honesty and communication and planning and hard work and accountability. These are some really critical characteristics of an innovative partnership. I've also included this at the front end. These are slides I hope you can go back and review. The characteristics I pulled out, it's a long list, but I've ordered them in a way that I think really describes the innovative perspectives that one should have when thinking about what they can do to innovate in their respective domains. And then ultimately, I've pulled together a couple of techniques or principles. I'm going to do what this principle suggests and keep it very simple. Ultimately, the more simple your solutions are, the easier they will be to describe, the easier they will be to implement, and ultimately the easier they will be to measure. And so it's really important to avoid the temptation of complexity when we talk about innovating. So I was thinking about this talk this morning, and I was trying to remember, and Paul will remember, we've spoken about this series for a long time, and I was excited about having, the first position in this series. And when you think about it, it's just value and they're just features. I don't know if there are any members on the call this morning who love to cook as much as I do. I've recently started watching a new series on Netflix, simply called Salt, Fat, Acid, and Heat. And I thought about that and I thought, well, this is why, because there are so many powerful combinations that can arise out of some very simple approaches to understanding value and being able to describe that value as a feature of a product. And so what I hope to do this morning is lay this very simple set of information out, helping you understand that it can be quite complex. Now I'm going to introduce some of those concepts too as we move along. So first, let's talk about what value is as a baseline. So we talk about value. I hope that everyone talks about value really as a value proposition. This is how we speak about value in our office. And it really is the intended benefit that one might derive from using some type of product. It's important to decompose that around the other points I put here on the slide. And you'll see these play out again through the course of the conversation this morning. So value is oftentimes organized around functional or expected utility of features. We talk in terms of the functional benefits quite often. These tend to be, again, the most tangible and discrete ways to talk about whether or not we have something that is clinically meaningful and potentially commercially viable. But there are the psychological measures as well as monetary measures. And all of these add up to a package that will help innovators as well as those supporting the innovator to try to take key measures of what it is that the concept might look like once enabled. I wanted to just give a quick example here, and I've spread a few other examples in addition to case studies. The psychological one may not be as clear as functional. The psychological really is this perception of the value created. And when you think about a product or a brand, Disney might be the perfect example of this psychological value. It's known as the happiest place on earth. So it's not that every product has to be measured in very tangible ways. It just so happens that most of the time in healthcare, we focus on the functional or expected utility first. I wanted to also mention that as we go through this morning, and as you begin your journey or continue that journey, I hope some of you are traveling an innovative journey right now. We have on the left of the various ways that we refer to the players related to innovation and enablement. And then on the right, the commercial players. These really can be mostly interchangeable and are somewhat dependent, if not completely dependent, upon the maturity that you see walking along the bottom from concept to product delivery. You'll see pretty frequently, I've done it, and you'll find other people who do it, who will actually substitute users in for customers. This is an important distinction that we'll talk through in the slides today, but they really are pretty interchangeable. It's just that when we say customers, usually there has been some type of economic benefit created that people are paying for. But I wanted to lay this out. This is a good way to get familiar with the interchangeable nature of the players as value gets created and enabled in products. Wanted to also introduce this concept of features. So what is a feature? So I view features as a really key building block. So it's valuable at the front end. It's especially valuable for someone like me who's built many products based around the proposed value propositions. The feature is a great way to tackle that challenge. And so the feature being the embodiment of the concept, more importantly, to which we can attribute the value propositions. So this is interesting because value propositions were presented first in our office. Often we will get disclosures that pack a real value punch. So it's overwhelmed with value without necessarily the connection to how we could enable or measure that value. So features are a key element of that, and one that I emphasize in the relationships that I keep. In fact, for any of you who are familiar with any previous invention disclosure form we've had here at the office, or any of the new invention disclosure forms, I think there was just a new one published yesterday, there tends to be an element or a reflection of feature. We do want to gather that early, and we think it's a very valuable framework, whether you're disclosing a concept to us or finding a way to measure what you're working on. Features are individually important for sure. A feature list can be a valuable collection. There's somewhat of a taxonomy that exists here where there are branches of features. All of them might roll up to a master feature list that enables kind of this picture of what the innovation is and can be described in a cohesive way. I will show you a tool for that later on as we go. And then really importantly, features are important units for creating traceability. So you have your value, you've maybe attributed that to a feature. Now, how can we look at this and think about the build process? The traceability between value and features is an incredible way for us to actually enable all of the effort that goes into building and enabling concepts. This is an example or a manifestation of a feature that has functional value. So I'm just reminding you here in the context of this slide, again, what a feature is. The example of this feature is taken from a project that I'm working on. It could be called the personalized airway map. What we then do is we surround the feature with the users, the values, and any evidence that we either have or we might need to gather. In this case, the user is a clinician intubating a patient or an anesthesiologist. We know that this can happen in a variety of settings. And navigating a difficult airway is problematic. And so we have a feature called a personalized airway map. We know who would be using it, and we have to attribute value to that. So in this case, The value attributed is quicker time to intubation and less trauma for the patient. And ultimately, this allows us to hang either known source evidence off of it or create a roadmap for the type of evidence that we might need to gather if we were doing research to try to understand, is this value something that is real? Have we truly saved time, and has there been less trauma to the patients? I wanted to spend a little bit of time on evidence. This is something I'm sneaking in on top of value and features this morning. Evidence is absolutely critical to me. You may be able to pull together a fairly compelling list of features. The value may be compelling as well. Evidence is really critical. It's important that we separate out proof from evidence. This may be just nuanced, but I see this quite often. Proof, I view it just as some modest amount of feedback that suggests that what you're working on isn't a horrible idea or a bad endeavor. Evidence really is the beginning or the end of this body of facts or information that support whether or not the proposition, in this case, the value proposition, is true or valid. This helps us do that very important process, walk through that very important process of ensuring that the value that we hypothesized actually can be captured. And so it's really important as you think about products and enabling and features and value to leave plenty of space for evidence, knowing that this will be a pretty critical part of your path. I also say that it's incredibly important to focus on demonstrating the outcomes of any enabling activity or innovative activity and avoiding the distraction of potential commercial outcomes. I say this because it turns out, if you build things that help people and are easy to use, inevitably you can find an economic buyer willing to pay a price for that. And so I really encourage new innovators and old alike to focus on demonstrating the outcomes, gathering the evidence, because if we have that, the commercial potential really just falls into place quite naturally. So I wanted to share just a little bit here as we look at pulling value and features together before we move on to some design-based thinking content. So these are a few advanced concepts. I call them advanced because they can be. You might read them and say, well, these are quite simple. In my relationship, both to the roles I played in the past, running a small software as a service company focused on building digital products, and working with inventors here at the clinic, understanding the price early is very important. And so I wanted to just share this with everyone listening in this morning. So we typically, once we have a picture of value and features, there's some ways that we can begin to think about the price. So what might we charge someone for the use of the product in return for the value it delivers? There tend to be three ways in the very early stages that we look at this. One is the cost to develop. So how much time and money did we accumulate in our endeavor for enabling and demonstrating the concept? Comparison is something you'll hear often. We have a market assessment team. We're fortunate to have that team, and they do tremendous work going out and looking at a variety of different market assessment resources to pool comparisons. You may have heard this before, sometimes referred to as comp. So we try to see if there are any comparables, and we use those comparables to set pricing targets to help us understand what the total commercial value might look like. And then this appears to be confusing and maybe a bit redundant, but value. And so value, again, is this concept of being able to accumulate the total utility delivered by something in ways that really are a more appropriate reflection of the total value and therefore the price someone might be willing to pay. On this next slide, I wanted to just introduce a few more advanced concepts. So oftentimes the economic value propositions need to be evaluated. So at the outset of this, I can imagine that you're going to use this information this morning and you're going to create a list of features. You're going to attribute value to them. We certainly want you to do that. In a rank ordered list of value propositions, they all play some role in contribution to the economic value. There usually are several key economic value propositions. And so these are the key value propositions that compel someone to take money out of their wallet and make a payment for the product that you're developing. These tend to be emphasized later in the process. Well, they're emphasized throughout, but especially later in the process as we try to package up and tell the story of the innovative product that's been designed and we're attempting to move into commercial markets. Willingness to pay is a very important concept. Willingness to pay really, if you think about it, establishes the buyer's perspective on if they would be willing to pay that money, and if so, how much. This is important because there's oftentimes a misalignment between perceptions of the value of a product. We all love our products. I love the product I will show you later in the slides. But we need to take clear measurement of whether or not those products really truly drive or compel someone to make a payment. And so that willingness to pay is an important concept we'll have a look at. And then optimal value propositions. So optimal value propositions are those that benefit as many people in what I call this value chain or this ecosystem of all of the players. You have the users, you have the collaborators, you have supply chain. There are a lot of people who play in a more commercial-oriented value chain. The more value you can create for each of them, the more likely it is that the advanced concept that you're trying to build and distribute would be successful. So I wanted to just go through a very simple example before I move on. So I pull this in again. I'm going to lay this information out along the lines of these three key components of value: the functional value, psychological value, and monetary value. The case here I've laid out very simply is I would like a jacket to keep me warm. It turns out I am a naturalist who cares about sustainability, environmental responsibility, and I do have a budget. And so I might go out and consider what types of products match my needs and what would I be willing to pay for. It turns out this is true not only on the slide, but in real life. You know, Patagonia makes a variety of really warm and highly functional clothing. You know, the functional value here was driven from the fact that the original product lines were built for mountaineers, you know, people climbing mountains for recreational purposes. It turns out that Patagonia is a mission-driven company using recycled or traceable materials and giving a lot of that back in terms of benefiting other environmental non-for-profits. They, as a brand, are quite colorful and distinct. And it turns out that the products are expensive, but built to last. And so this is a really simple way that you could look at this particular product and the ways that it might hit a consumer like me or like you in this assessment of what value is important. Okay, so I want to share a few perspectives. I called this perspectives on maximizing value. Just a few slides here. So value perspectives. So I want to encourage you as you think about where to spend your time innovating, whether that's medical innovation that leads to commercial innovation, thinking about this really simple pictorial. So at the top, I've put a box around these two images. I wanted to demonstrate that the image on the top really represents point solutions. You'll hear this come up from time to time. We use this language pretty frequently. A point solution is really quite small in size and scope and may or may not truly hit the needs of a representative or large set of economic buyers. And so when we look at point solutions, you might get lucky. You know, if you look at the right, you have the perfect that the green in the center is intended to represent the perfect fit between a point solution and someone's buying interest. But ultimately, it tends not to be as fruitful as innovative or product development initiative. A pipeline can be slightly more valuable. I still call it low potential, simply because of the time and the capital intensive nature of development. So the pipeline is, how can we not just do one feature? How might we have a variety of features, and how might those features roll up to providing value? There is room to play here. It's just lower as a relative measure of innovative or commercial potential. And if you look downstream of that, we've found in our work, in the work that I have, that the innovative pipeline where we find the most interest and the most viability is where we have the alignment of multiple players inside of a platform. I think Amazon is a terrific version or example of this. Maybe it's a bit outdated, but Amazon has really gone a long way from just being a bookseller online to being a place or a platform where buyers and sellers can play each one of those roles themselves, which I think is a terrific representative example. So I may log on and go and be a buyer. I have an account, I buy something. I also, if I would like, can put product up there and I could become the seller. And so this is just a really simplified version of a very complex and quite successful platform. And so I'd encourage you to think less about point solutions and more about platforms. Where can we create optimal value propositions for all of the key players? I want to talk about this quickly. So in healthcare, and especially here at the clinic, we look at the various ways or places where we can invest our innovative intentions or innovative attention. So we go top to bottom and we can go outside in. So moving from the outside in, we find that there is pressure from the outside pushing us to innovate, and that's okay. There are new technologies, maybe some of them purposely built for medicine, maybe others that are not. If you think about quantum computing, everyone understands that this is something that is top of mind for healthcare, and especially here at the Cleveland Clinic, given our investments that are being made in quantum computing. There is bottom up. If you looked at bottom up really is a collection of those point solutions. These are the individual features that may have some value, but really don't add up to being large or sustainable. I oftentimes suggest that we focus on the higher value top down. So these are the strategic influences over our interest to innovate. And we have many of these at the Cleveland Clinic. We're the #1 heart center in the world. We have the best clinicians from around the world. We have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the types of tools to do our jobs. And so when we think about value in this way, top down tends to be a really great way to think about where you'd like to invest your time. And I'll give you an example of this as we move out. And then ultimately, we look outside in. And so this is really, no matter how you've achieved this enablement and description of value, can we push it from the inside of our organization out, which happens pretty frequently. An example of that is the contribution of a blockchain solution to a conglomerate. That conglomerate is represented by payers and bankers and many other participants, not just healthcare companies. So sometimes we will innovate and we'll push that value from the inside of our organization out to affect other companies and industries. So this is a quick example of driving value top down from our core strengths. So we worked here at the clinic to describe and build a remote patient monitoring solution. This remote patient monitoring solution was really derived from the scalability achieved at stacking GE monitors on top of one another for cardiac telemetry monitoring units. And the idea was that if we could do it like this, perhaps there are ways to further consolidate and scale these limited resources over a fixed number of monitoring devices, and then start to introduce intelligence into that. The intelligence that would be applied on each one of these floors, whether it's for cardiac telemonitoring or it's monitoring patients at a distance who might be in the ICU. This is a great example of the type of top-down approach. We had executive support from Dr. Cosgrove. The team was multidisciplinary, and we have had a sustained investment in making products out of this and have been successful moving that out to market. Another is that comes from our expertise in our medical device solutions group. They were given use of the HoloLens and had years and years, if not decades, of experience in medical imaging technologies, and used this new opportunity, given the expertise found here at the clinic, from an outside in, to use a new technology platform to enable augmented virtual reality that is now being used. It's been licensed to a startup, a Cleveland-based startup. They've raised over $10 million and are building products that hopefully will change a variety of different medical procedures. So at this stage, I wanted to move into design-based thinking. I'm also looking at the clock. But Paul, you know, at any point, just speak up or give me a 5-minute warning. I planned to go maybe till 7:50, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I think you can move along, and I wanted to leave some time for questions at the end.
Okay.
So yeah, feel free to 7:50 is a good time, or even just a shade earlier would be good too. So we
Okay.
can have some interaction.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Okay. So design-based thinking is really critical, and I labeled this stimulation and focus. So when we think about where we should be focusing our innovative energy, uh, um, making observations is critical. I put this slide at the front because focusing in on gaps in clinical evidence really is a terrific place to start. So if you think you have an idea and you go to PubMed and you look for some literature or whatever tool you use and you don't find it, tends to be a great place to start. And then there's this concept of maybe something exists, but we are world-leading experts. So perhaps there's a way that we can enable solutions that nobody else can enable. I wanted to just introduce this concept quickly. In healthcare, oftentimes, you hear the chief complaint. We're really good at dealing with problems. There's so much to be gained from flipping that from a problem-based approach to more of a positive approach. And there's a lot of literature. You can go back and look at just these quick citations I have in here, and there's probably millions of more you could find. It is all about this idea of moving from this negative mindset to this positive mindset, which really stretches one's creative abilities and reduces the normal, what we call structural tension of trying to innovate, reduces that down to a state where really meaningful flow can happen in one's innovative endeavor. Design-based thinking. So I'm going to pull this picture together quickly. I really like this. There are different versions of this picture that exist. I created this one for a slide I built some time ago. We spend a tremendous amount of time in this wiggly section here, uncertainty and insight. But the tools that we're talking about this morning, identifying value, attribution of value to features, and then in design-based thinking, constantly asking this question of how might we, in which ways could we solve for these things? In which ways might we be able to do our own secondary or primary research to create observations or complete interviews that help us understand if we're on the right path to discovery or not? And then as you go, what can happen is you may find that there's really nothing to do, and that's okay too. You just start with a different squiggly line and you attempt to straighten that out. But if you are successful, this process plays out in a way that allows you to identify the key concepts that need to be built and tested, allowing you to convert that to prototypes, and then ultimately convert that through clarity and focus to an innovative outcome. So this is a quick study I wanted to walk through with everyone. So, design-based thinking is incredibly valuable. If you look at this, this is an example of how digital media has changed over time. So this is an example of movies, and some of the how might we questions at the time could have been, could we make the screen different? How could we change seating capacity? And then we fast forward through the traditional movie theater into this, how could we really change this? Maybe people don't need to go to a movie theater, right? Maybe people just rent movies when they'd like. And this is how Blockbuster emerged. Blockbuster was, there were a lot of retail locations. It was a lot to manage. So Netflix came along and said, how might we disrupt this? Could we, instead of going to an actual location to rent a movie, maybe what we could do is we could just send those movies directly to someone's home. That seems like it would be valuable and people would want to buy that, right? So here we're talking about the key value prop of convenience and the willingness to pay, which is quite high. And then Netflix thought, well, it was great when we were delivering this via CD or DVD. How might we even change this? Because maintaining these DVDs and mailing them out, there are high costs involved with that. Maybe what we should do is we should just stream it directly to someone's living room. So now they don't even have to mess with the mail. And then ultimately, this last stage of how might we, you can see here we're in this situation where Netflix, whether they're performing well or not performing well, has continued to ask these questions that have allowed them to innovate. So now they're actually creating their own content to put on the platform. I really like this example. A colleague of mine came up with this. We came up with this as we were giving a different talk, and I thought it was appropriate for this morning about how to challenge oneself with this constant, how could we straighten this line out and come with better solutions by asking, how might we change this experience and find more value for the users? So I encourage everyone to focus not on the buyer. You could focus on the user, but focusing on the extreme user is incredibly valuable. On the right-hand side of this slide, you can see an example of using design-based thinking to change the paradigm on how a pediatric patient might experience an otherwise very terrifying MRI machine. That MRI machine, by the way, probably checked the boxes off. It probably had all of the newest and greatest features, right? The value propositions were there. The people buying this, right? So hospital imaging representatives, check. We know they're going to buy this. As it turns out, these were not optimal value propositions because they left the patient out of the equation. And so by changing this around, thinking creatively, you can create a whole new situation that maximizes the value. I encourage you to come back to this or even find the story given the citation here I've left. This is a case I'm going to go through. What I may do is I may leave the second case just for you to look at following this. If you were inclined, I'm happy to spend time with anyone who would like to connect with me and we can walk through these. This first value and feature case, again, tries to pull all of this together, but from the lens of the relationship that we keep together here at the clinic. And so this is interesting. This comes from an inventor in our orthopedic institute. We have a Center for Esports. And that Center for Esports, in addition to caring for regular athletes with traditional sports injuries, also serves the needs of esport athletes. That might be surprising to everyone. It usually is as I talk through this, but I think that's why it's so exciting to use as an example. So this particular leader and innovator took a top-down approach to saying, in which ways is the Cleveland Clinic, in which ways am I, as a leading subject matter expert in my space, am I uniquely positioned to identify a suite of potentially new opportunities to serve the esports market? And what could we build to meet that opportunity? So I was I have been especially fond of this inventor relationship that I keep, and having watched this person walk this process has been amazing. These are a set of slides that we built together to demonstrate some of these key points. And so here you can see that we have put a problem statement here. You know, we have a huge industry. It's growing leaps and bounds. How can, in this case, the esports ability of an athlete be assessed, and how can it be assessed reliably and consistently? And so with that really as the background, we talked through the various perspectives. So we have individual gamers, we have colleges, and we have professionals. These are the groups of users we feel like have some interest in the value that could be returned from a tool that could reliably and consistently evaluate esports performance. There's another important concept on this slide. It's called reference point dependence. So there are stated value propositions, and then there's the bonus value given someone's perspective on their current environment and the value they or lack thereof that they may be receiving today. And so this reference point dependence suggests that there is no single scientifically or medically developed instrument that was capable of providing this type of service. You can see how simple that is, and how the value is very easy and quick to come through in what we're discussing here. So what we did was we further decomposed that. We take the same 3 segments. So here we're really talking about our total addressable market, our serviceable addressable market, and then ultimately those we think we could obtain out of those markets. This was just a quick and easy way to look at the key value proposition for each one of these segments. We restate that. We look at who the economic buyer might be. And then in this case, as a measure of value and comparison, we have a look at what we think the tolerance to some type of price might be. And so we walk through that just to get some take on, is the value that we have in mind actually worthwhile to a known economic buyer? So we then further segmented this. We picked some pricing out, looked at penetration of each one of these markets, and then we pulled that together to essentially give us the ultimate translation of concept through value and feature into something that could be a commercial representation of that potential. I want to say a couple things here, and maybe it's appropriate again that we close after this. I think I've said this to you too, Paul. You know, here at the clinic, we should pursue the things that we think are valuable, no matter the commercial viability. Oftentimes, we have conversations with inventors who've done a lot of tremendous research and have proven concepts to be quite valuable clinically. Not all clinically valuable concepts are also commercially viable. This is just a case where, as I wanted to demonstrate to you, we do have the intention to evaluate this. We're involved in our office. And so we've walked this entire concept through to a formation, this just being one small picture of how to project out what we think the potential of this idea might look like. I do have another case study in here. I think you'd find it interesting and valuable. It was the project that I had worked on. It lays it out pretty clearly. I'm sure if you went through that, you could see that the themes I've introduced to you this morning could be applied pretty quickly and easily. There's some tools in there that I would encourage you to look at for your own purposes. You know, you'll find on one particular slide tools called the product position and the problem statement. Those are terrific ways to frame the total value of the concept that you're trying to enable or the product you're trying to build, as well as setting up a proper framework for implementation science. You know, you have your research protocols. Implementation science is really where the research meets measurable user-based feedback on the value that might be achieved from a concept. So I'd encourage you to follow through on that, given the references in the slides. I hope what I've done in the quick and short amount of time we've had together today is introduce some of these fundamental building blocks. I think you'll find when you dig in, they can become quite complex. I tried to give you a taste of that this morning. Values are important. Attributing that value to feature is important, and it really cascades from there into gathering evidence that, again, could be clinically important, if not also commercially important. So I'll end with that.
Well, thanks a lot, Thad. I wanted to open it up to questions here in just a minute, but I just had a couple quick questions. I recently, I came across sort of the concept of prototyping and failing fast as part of that iterative process. Can you comment on that? With your experience, I think sometimes it's easy to get very wedded to an idea, but maybe taking the opportunity, of these sort of early fails to refine and get input. What's your experience tell you with that?
Yeah, great question, Paul. So, gosh, there's so many examples of this. I'm going to pull one out that I think would be relevant for everyone related to using data to drive innovation. I think it's much easier to fail, and you should fail with data first. And so, unlike a traditional product where the prototyping, to really truly get someone to understand what it is you're trying to build, it does take significant effort, and throwing that away feels strange and uncomfortable. Data allows you to fail even quicker, and I encourage it. And so we have a couple big projects right now that really have been established in the very early stages to iterate quite quickly through, do we have consistency of data? Do we feel like the data is relevant? Do we feel like the location and accessibility of that data is possible? And if you looked at it, the corollary building a regular product, at each one of these stages, those are really intangibles, and you can fail really quickly by saying, oh my God, I had this great idea to look at this data, and it turns out this data really just isn't any good. It's not as good as I thought. Or maybe I looked at this data and I didn't realize that I should include other data. And so this is just one small example. And I tell people this because a lot of people are interested in using data to fuel innovation. It's much easier to throw away, and I'd encourage everyone to be really critical of what they're putting in. All in all, Paul, I am a huge fan of it. Usually I keep a really tight relationship with whomever I'm working with so that we know what we're throwing away and when, because there can be some really valuable information to extract before we toss an idea in the garbage. But all in all, yeah, a huge fan of knowing where we don't want to invest our precious value units of time and energy.
And then finally, one of my observations, over the last year or two is really, I wanted to emphasize the value of storytelling. A lot of times we know our patients and we know the clinical problems. I kind of wanted to emphasize to the residents and my colleagues, being able to tell that story to kind of build some excitement and identify the problem. I think it's maybe an underappreciated ability that takes some practice. Kind of like if you fail quickly, sometimes it's maybe the story wasn't compelling either. Can you comment on that? Because oftentimes your level of expertise and involvement to the people you're talking to is really incongruent, and so sometimes I feel like the onus is on you to create the why and to sort of cultivate why someone should care.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Paul, I wish we could spend another 4 hours talking about this. I'm sure it would just be you and I. Everyone else would drop off the call. If you don't believe and you can't find a compelling description of the thing you're working on, you probably shouldn't be working on it. This is kind of the small point that I was making that's abundantly clear to everyone. If you focus on what's driving an outcome, a clinical benefit, instead of just doing something because you think that you might be creating commercial opportunities, this is key. The second case in the slide deck, again, if we print those and distribute them, is a story that I told, right? I came to work for our Genomic Medicine Institute because I found out I was a carrier for cystic fibrosis, and I found that the processes around assessing phenotype and genotype and the biomarkers were messed up, and we were missing a lot of opportunity and spending a lot of time. We were spending a lot of money, and we were spending a lot of people's their time We've introduced a lot of worry and anxiety into these processes. So I say all that just to reaffirm, if you can come up with a concept and you can believe in it and you can tell that story, it doesn't guarantee anything, but it will guarantee that people will be able to listen to you and probably be able to follow what it is that you think is driving that innovation. Huge believer in that, Paul.
Well, thank you. And I wanted to open it up to the audience, for those that are still here. I know some people have to run off to the OR, but please open it up.
Hi, Thad. This is Jamie again. Thank you so much for that. A lot of great concepts that, I was not aware of or, didn't know how to put into terms. But main question I have is like, what if you're, obviously the expert clinician in the patient population, the problem and potential solutions, but you're not an expert in like how to carry out the solution. Say like I don't have any engineering background, I don't have any background in programming, things like that. At what point do you approach the innovation team, and how do you help like develop those solutions?
Yeah, great question, Jamie. So the good news is that establishing a firm grasp on the path you hope to walk as an inventor is pretty cheap and easy. So with some of the tools that I've discussed this morning, and being able to tell a compelling story, as well as doing some early prototyping. Those prototypes can be as simple as a mock-up or a sketch. We get a lot of those in medical device. These are not engineers, but they kind of draw out the anatomy and they put a catheter to the spot, for example. These are all really effective ways to describe what it is you're working on. After we've done an assessment, we do an assessment again, not of only the clinical validity, but also the commercial viability. We can surround that. We have experts in our office, PhDs, MBAs, folks who have built and run businesses like me, who can source the proper talent. We may have some of that internally. We oftentimes will go external, and we set up a project that will help understand what the units of effort are, what expertise we need to get to that next stage of enabling a concept that actually can be held or demonstrated in real ways. And so we're prepared to help everyone with that. I would encourage, Jamie, great question. I don't think that you're discouraged in any way. Anyone who's still listening, go and do it the simple way. Just get your arms around what you want to do, tell the compelling story, make sure those value props are clear and you know what you want to build. Those are all really great and effective ways to get started on the journey.
Our roster is winding down. Any other thoughts or comments? If not, that's totally fine. Thad, I just wanted to thank you, for sort of getting the ball rolling. I see Dr. Genther there. I see him signing off. Okay. But yeah, thank you for getting the ball rolling with this innovations curriculum. We'll look to maybe have you back sometime, or maybe change the format to some other cases and things like that. So with that, I'll let everybody get off to their week. And Thad, thank you so much for your time and expertise. And I know you and I'll connect here soon.
That sounds good. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.